This is my cat, Dunkin' Donuts. He's a cutie, isn't he? Dunkin' Donut. I love him. He's so adorable. Alright, you can go be free now. Hello, everybody. So, if you saw the title of this video, or saw my last video, you know that I recently got the 4K Criterion restoration of Martin Scorsese's Raging Bull. Super excited for this title ever since they released it, or announced it rather. I'm a big fan of Raging Bull. I'm a big fan of Martin Scorsese. Really big fan of Paul Schrader, as many of you probably know, having watched this channel for any particular amount of time. And yeah, so it's great. This is a very iconic film. And it's in 4K, which is great. I love seeing Criterion sort of go and branch out into more titles with their 4Ks, and specifically with this one, they're dipping back into the Laserdisc catalog, which they've already done a couple times with their recent string of 4K releases. So, without further ado, let's get into this review. So, first off, this is obviously the cover art, and then this is the back. Very minimal back, obviously, like most Criterions. And I will read you what is on the back of the Criterion. So, this is 4K Ultra HD plus Blu-ray combo edition, so it has the 4K Blu-ray and the Blu-ray. 1980, 129 minutes, black and white, 2.0 surround sound, and 1.85 to 1 aspect ratio. So, for director approved 4K Ultra HD plus Blu-ray special features. So we have a new 4K digital master approved by director Martin Scorsese with 2.0 surround sound, DTH HD master audio soundtrack. So obviously, if you're brand new to the collection, you don't know this, or if you know about the collection, you know that when they do these releases for the Criterion Collection, they usually have the directors come in who are, if they're alive, and sort of look over the transfer that they're doing to ensure that the film sort of fits their specific vision for the movie, how it's supposed to look and sound to them, which I think is very cool, because you're not you're not detaching the vision from the presentation, right, itself. So you are getting exactly what the director intended when you're watching these. So, one 4K Ultra HD disc of the film presented in HDR with one Blu-ray of the film and special features. There's 3 audio commentaries featuring Scorsese and editor Thelma Schoonmaker, director of photography Michael Chapman, producers Robert Chartoff and Erwin Winkler, casting director Sis Corman, music consultant Robbie Robertson and others, and boxer Jake LaMotta, and screenwriters Mardik Martin and Paul Schrader. New video essays by film critics Jeffrey O'Brien and Sheila O'Malley, and key members of the cast and crew. 3 short programs highlighting the collaboration between Scorsese and actor Robert De Niro, television interview from 1981 with actor Kathy Moriarty, and the real Vicky LaMotta, interview with Jake LaMotta from 1990, program from 2004 featuring veteran boxers reminiscing about LaMotta, trailer, English subtitles for the deaf and hard of hearing, plus essays by poet Robin Robertson and film critic Glenn Kenny. So we have it right here. That's all the special features, which I'll dive into later. And yeah, so when you open it, so you'll get the Criterion, obviously. Open it up. This is what you'll see. So the red disc is the 4K disc. This gray disc back here is the Blu-ray disc, and then this is your booklet. So let me show you the booklet first. Right? Awesome frame right up front right here. And then, this is exactly what most of the booklets are, right? You get essays that also have, little pieces of the film shown in it. But it's mostly reading essays from people, basically. It's a rather cool booklet. I think I kind of like the black on white. They really lean into the black and white tone. I love this behind the scenes shot right here of them shooting the film. Really awesome. One of my favorite things to read when I get these booklets is to go all the way to the back and read about the image restoration. I don't know why, because sometimes they add a little something. Sometimes they talk a little bit more about it. So, for this one, so in the About the Master section, Raging Bull is presented in its original aspect ratio of 1.85 to 1, approved by director Martin Scorsese, with the new master was created in 4K resolution on a laser graphics director film scanner from the 35 millimeter original camera negative. The original 2.0 surround soundtrack was remastered from a 35 millimeter 3-track magnetic track. Please be sure to enable Dolby Pro Logic decoding on your receiver to properly play the 2.0 surround soundtrack on the 4K Ultra HD disc. The feature is presented in HDR, high dynamic range. On the Blu-ray is presented in high definition SDR, standard dynamic range. So yeah. And then it says the transfer supervisors were Scorsese and Schumacher. So that's actually pretty cool. So you get that. Put that over here. And then you have, like I said, you have the Blu-ray disc and the 4K Ultra HD disc. And then when you take those out, you have this is your interior cover art, which I actually think is really, really cool. So now when it comes to the film, I'm a really big fan of Raging Bull. I think it's a very, very strong Scorsese movie. It's one of the most brutal Scorsese movies, one of the most dark Scorsese movies. Specifically, this character, Jake LaMotta, is just such a tortured soul. And I guess that all really comes from like Paul Schrader's script, who obviously writes a lot of movies about a lot of tortured souls. So you really get all of that in there. And if you're into that, I'm pretty sure you'll like the movie. It's got beautiful black and white cinematography. The transfer of the film, I think, is very, very good. It's very pristine. And one thing I really, really like about it is that the grain is intact, right? There's no digital noise reduction done to sort of minimize the grain. The grain is there. The sharpness is there. And you really are seeing all the details. One pet peeve I have when people, review these 4K discs of old movies, they say, oh, it looks like it was shot yesterday. And I feel like that's kind of untrue. Especially if you've seen many films from different eras, right? From the 70s or from the 60s or from the 50s or the 80s, and now, even things that are shot on film versus digital, you know that there is a different look to what is shot on film now to what was shot on film back then. And this looks, like a film that was shot on film 40 years ago, right, when it first came out. And that's not a bad thing. But they've done a very good job at making the film pristine, right? Getting rid of the errors, getting rid of the marks, the scratches, all of that stuff, and really presenting it in the best possible way ever. That, film that was shot in 1980 looks like, it's been preserved just incredibly well. And I think that's very important for people to know. I think people get kind of set up for failure when they hear, oh, it looks like it was shot yesterday, and you may be expecting it to look mind-blowingly different. But the reality is that Raging Bull actually had a pretty good, decent transfer originally. The one that was on the Blu-ray and the one that I actually never got to see on Blu-ray. I only ever got to see it on iTunes, and I thought it was actually pretty good. So seeing this one, it is definitely a noticeable upgrade. It's a lot sharper, obviously. Not a lot sharper. It's sharper. A lot of the more detail is there. There's obviously not this sort of digital... You don't sense like the digital nature that comes with streaming, right? The low bitrate streaming. Whereas obviously a 4K disc, right, you get a very high bitrate, production of the film. So it looks really awesome. Obviously, I've been showing you stills or little sections of the film, what they look like on my television. It looks really, really great. So I think you guys will really, really enjoy looking at this movie because it does look better than it probably ever has before. Alright, now I'm going to throw it over to this video I took where I sort of guide you through all the special features, what they are, and what you can expect from the special features that I previously read on the back of the Criterion. Alright, so here we are at the 4K disc, and as you can see, there's no supplements tab in the Criterion Collection sort of section right there where you get to navigate to what specific part of the disc that you want to control. So if we go down to commentaries, we can see that there are 3 commentaries here. We have one that says Scorsese and Schumacher, cast and crew, and then LaMotta and writers. And then I'll read you the sort of description of what these are. Presented here are 3 audio commentaries. The first, recorded by the Criterion Collection in 1990, features director Martin Scorsese and editor Thelma Schoonmaker. The second, recorded in 2004 for MGM, features director of photography Michael Chapman, producers Robert Chartoff and Irwin Winkler, casting director Sis Corman, music consultant Robbie Robertson, actors Teresa Saldana and John Turturro, and supervising sound effects editor Frank Warner. The third, also recorded in 2004 for MGM, features boxer Jake LaMotta and his nephew Jason Lustig, and screenwriters Mardik Martin and Paul Schrader. To listen to a commentary while viewing the movie, press the audio key on your remote at any time. So, obviously, you're going to get 3 commentaries that last the length of the movie. I'd say that's pretty good that you get all of those. There's obviously a lot of very valuable voices speaking to the creation of the film in this, specifically Paul Schrader, Schoonmaker, Scorsese, and Jake LaMotta himself, the boxer, obviously. So this is actually really, really cool, as well as you have some producers. So, this is, I would say, a very well-rounded showing for commentaries on a disc like this, because you're getting just tons of very important voices that were integral to the making of this film. So now we are here looking at the Blu-ray disc. When you put in the Blu-ray disc, this is actually where you get the supplements, the sort of video special features that come with the Criterion. So this is only available on the Blu-ray disc because there's enough space, obviously, on the 4K disc. So when you go to the supplements, you get to see 5 sections of supplements. So we have video essays, Raging Bull Fight Night, Martin Scorsese and Robert De Niro, Jake LaMotta, and then Kathy Moriarty and Vicky LaMotta. So when you go to the video essays tab, there's 2 video essays, Pours Everything In and Gloves Off. And these 2 video essays, Pours Everything In is basically like a sort of technical analysis of the film and the techniques that Martin Scorsese employed in the film, Raging Bull, in order to sort of get the effect that he wanted out of it, and basically how he told the story on a technical level, from cinematography, lighting, sound, and stuff like that. And it's, it says the first, written and narrated by film critic and poet Jeffrey O'Brien, explores Martin Scorsese's mastery of formal cinematic techniques in Raging Bull and the layers of aesthetic choices on display in the film. And then the second one, Gloves Off, this, it says, is second, written and narrated by film critic Sheila O'Malley, observes the triumvirate of Jake LaMotta, his brother Joey, and his second wife, Vicky, and how the actors Robert De Niro, Joe Pesci, and Kathy Moriarty gave the characters everything they had. And then, so basically, this second one is all about the actors and how they basically came to, getting their performances on screen as good as they were. Obviously, there are a lot of iconic performances in this movie, specifically Robert De Niro and Joe Pesci. So it's actually really, really cool that you get to sort of get 2 different looks at the aspects of how the film comes together the way you see it, right? Being whether it's the technical aspects, right, that Scorsese is creating, the filmmaking techniques themselves, which I'm personally more interested in, and I thought that was a very strong video essay. And then for people who are more interested in acting and how actor performances are done and how certain actors, have been able to sort of get the performances that they've gotten out of themselves and the things that they do to sort of make their performances come to life, that's where Gloves Off comes in. All right, so then when you go to Raging Bull Fight Night, what you get here, I'll read you the description. This 4-part making-of documentary features Martin Scorsese, producers Robert Chartoff and Irwin Winkler, actors Robert De Niro, Kathy Moriarty, Joe Pesci, and Frank Vincent, director of photography Michael Chapman, editor Thelma Schoonmaker, screenwriters Mardik Martin and Paul Schrader, and sound effects supervising editor Frank Warner. It was produced by MGM in 2004. Now, this is actually a great making-of documentary. I've seen this before. Because it was available on the Raging Bull special features on iTunes, the iTunes extras. If you want to see a freaking awesome making of documentary, this is actually a really, really good one, especially for a movie like this. I always like when they sort of take the time to do a really good, at least semi-feature length making of documentary for a movie, at least an hour. That's what I'm expecting, at least 45 minutes to an hour, because there is so much that goes into a lot of these great films. So it's great that they actually included this in here, because this is actually quite a lot of material for somebody to consume, specifically for this film. Then we have Martin Scorsese and Robert De Niro. So we have 3 short programs presented here highlighting director Martin Scorsese and actor Robert De Niro's longtime friendship, collaboration, and mutual dedication to their craft. The first 2 were produced for MGM in 2010. Third features audio excerpts from a Harold Lloyd Master seminar recorded in 1980 at the American Film Institute. So this is very interesting. So these first 2 short programs that you get are actually much newer than basically most of the rest of the supplements on the Criterion itself, because they were produced in 2010, so this was only 12 years ago. You're getting to see, obviously by now, by the time that was recorded, Martin Scorsese and Robert De Niro's legacy of making films together is rather iconic. So it's actually a really, really cool thing that MGM was kind of doing, like when they were doing this movie. That was probably for the Blu-ray release of the film, right? The idea of like, okay, let's add some more special features and stuff like that. Let's show people like all this cool stuff. And this is really awesome because obviously, that friendship has lasted so long. And this movie specifically is sort of credited with saving Martin Scorsese's life, sort of in the oral history of Scorsese and of this film and of him and Robert De Niro's friendship. So this is an iconic movie with a pretty iconic Scorsese story for anybody who knows. So that's pretty awesome. And then for any actors out there or people who want to learn about acting, you get to hear Robert De Niro himself talk about how he acts and sort of the techniques that he employs into his acting, which I think is very, very helpful for a lot of people who want to study that, is hearing directly from actors themselves. Then here we have 2 documentaries about Jake LaMotta. So the first one is just excerpts. It says the following programs spotlight former middleweight boxing champion Jake LaMotta. The first includes excerpts from a 1990 interview with LaMotta and boxing footage from his career. And then the second, produced for MGM in 2010, a newer feature, features members of the Veteran Boxers Association of New York reminiscing about LaMotta, aka the Raging Bull. So those are obviously really cool. Obviously, Raging Bull is based off of a true story, the story of Jake LaMotta. So this is more supplemental material that's less about the making of the film and actually more about who LaMotta was as a person, what his legacy is, and sort of like the fame of his very tumultuous boxing times. So that's pretty awesome. And then we have Kathy Moriarty and Vicky LaMotta, and then this is just an interview that was recorded in 1981 for Belgian television, where Kathy Moriarty and Vicky LaMotta talk and are interviewed about Kathy Moriarty playing Vicky LaMotta in the film in 1981, which is actually really awesome that this is also included in there, because I actually didn't even know this existed prior to this Criterion release. So yeah, and then we have the trailer, obviously. So those are the supplements that you get with the Criterion available on the Blu-ray. So when it comes to the Raging Bull 4K Criterion from the Criterion Collection, I think this is definitely a must-have, especially if you're a Scorsese fan, or if you're, since the 4Ks are very new and there's not that many of them, if you are definitely like, oh, I want to pick up the 4Ks that are coming out for Criterion, this is definitely a must-have, I think, for anybody's collection. Especially Scorsese fans, like I said, Paul Schrader fans like myself, Robert De Niro fans, film fans in general, because this is a very important movie sort of in the overall story of film and Scorsese's life, and it's a big turning point in his career, I would say. It looks very beautiful. I love all the special features that they have, laid out for us. I love the fact that, all 3 of the directors' the commentaries that are there are really, really cool. I sometimes like to listen to a commentary when I'm like doing something like writing, or if I'm just focused on something else, I don't necessarily have time to put my all my energy into watching a film, it's always great to put on a commentary and have the film in the background, sort of learn something about the film, even if you can't necessarily watch it and really pay attention too much all at that moment. I think it's presented beautifully. I love the menu. I love this packaging. I think is really, really cool. It's probably one of my favorite packagings. I like this picture. Now, do I think that Criterion could have maybe gotten a little bit more creative with it? Sure. We've all seen this picture before. This isn't necessarily a new picture. Same with the Uncut Gems. You know what I mean? With Uncut Gems, one of the big criticisms was that the artwork for it kind of was like, we've already seen this before. And I do kind of agree that maybe that they probably could have stepped up in the art department on that one and gotten a little bit more creative. But I think this is a banger hit from Criterion, especially if maybe you don't own this movie already or you haven't seen it too much, you know. It is one of their, it is a great 4K. I only really own 3 Criterion 4Ks, and this is definitely the best looking one, I think, out of all the ones that I own. So, you know, good job on Criterion for this release. I think this is a great, great film that was very deserving of getting on the Criterion Collection. I really like that Scorsese has started to like make his way more and more into the Criterion Collection, as he is one of my favorite directors. I look forward to watching his films a lot. So, you know, it's awesome to have this a part of the collection now, and hopefully you guys go out and buy it. If you guys have this Criterion and you have thoughts, or you want to let me know what you thought of it, please let me know in the comments down below. If you have any other Criterions that you guys recommend, I probably will be doing reviews of my other Criterions that I have as well, especially some of the ones that I just got specifically in that haul that I just put together. Because it'll be, I think, nice videos to just go through, watch them, especially while I'm working on a bigger project for this channel in the future. So yeah, thank you guys so much. Please leave a comment down below. Tell me what you thought about the video. Let me know if there's any other interesting video ideas that you have in the future. Thank you everybody for all the views also on the last video on this channel. I really, really appreciate it. It was nice after not having a video for so long for people to kind of show up for that. I know it's kind of a trendy topic at that point, but you know, still, it's very, very cool to see some people show up and be like, hey, you know, give me some likes and stuff on my small little haul. Wasn't as big as my past ones, but you know, it's a teeny weeny one. But thank you guys so much, and I will see you guys next time.